just one piece of advice, I would recommend companies implement what we call an ABM stand-up. And so Snowflake is doing this, Anaplan does this, we do it ourselves internally. The key is that you take the sales rep, the SDR if you have one, and the marketer that supports that pair. Just those folks. There's no around the room of other people, there's no executives, no managers, just those three folks. They get together, say every 2 weeks, and they talk about the accounts. Right, and they might you might look at the data in different ways. You might say, well, let's look at the open opportunities we're trying to close. Which ones are stuck? Just sort them by the days open. All right, well, what can we do to unstick the ones that have been not moving for some reason? Or, all right, now let's look at the top of the funnel. Like interesting accounts that are on our target list, but that are not showing any engagement.
Hi, I'm here with John Miller. He's the CEO and founder of Engagio. John, you recently published kind of the next manifesto of marketing automation. You founded the industry originally. What are you seeing next as kind of the next frontier, particularly as it relates to account-based marketing?
Yeah, so I mean, what you just said, I founded the industry. So as you know, I was one of the co-founders of Marketo. We started that about 13 years ago. The thing you got to remember about that time, 2006, is Google AdWords was only like a couple years old. Right, and so there was the business problem at that time was marketers were generating online leads at scale really for the first time. And they needed a place to capture them and a place to put them, and then they needed to do something with them and then pass them to sales at the right time. So forms and lead nurturing and kind of all that stuff was created. Marketing, and it gave marketing a lot of power and credibility because marketing was the group that got to have the keys to the customer communication system. They owned email, and they were generating leads, and so they earned their seat at the revenue table. The problem was that was 13 years ago,
right?
And that the model of marketing generates a lead and hands it to sales is a very linear baton handoff kind of mindset, and especially in an ABM world where people are trying to sell more complex deals and more upmarket. And that kind of thing. It's not a linear baton handoff. I think a much better analogy is it's a soccer team. And sure, you have forwards and you have fullbacks, so you have different players in different positions. But they pass the ball back and forth down the field. And it's non-linear. Sometimes it goes forward and sometimes it goes backwards, between these kind of different departments. So that's one big issue is, I think the traditional marketing automation mindset of the linear baton handoff is increasingly outdated for kind of a non-linear team-based world. Another one that's just sort of interesting is built into Marketo and Eloqua and the other marketing automation systems is a strong bias towards new business. Right? It's like about create the opportunity, create the customer. If somebody comes in through a form from an existing customer, like you don't know what to do with them. Is this a current user that needs to go to a CSM, or is this actually a new lead for a new opportunity? And that was okay back then, but now there's been such a rise in recurring revenue models that the vast majority of revenue happens after the initial sale, right? And so marketing as a function needs to change to be much more focused on closing existing pipeline and expanding relationships, not just generating new leads, and the tools kind of need to evolve behind that. So the last one is sort of the most obvious when it relates to ABM, which is these are lead-based systems. Marketo works on people. That ties to leads and contacts in Salesforce, and leads in Salesforce don't roll up to accounts, and it just creates a lot of complexity. We always talked about what I call spaghetti campaigns in Marketo. I'm sure you guys see this in your clients all the time, where there's just so many things going on because effectively what they're trying to do is they're trying to make sure the lead, the person, gets the right set of interactions based upon what's going on with the account. And you can do it if you're good enough at ops and you hire B2B Fusion, but it's really hard and it's complicated. And so the existing technology is holding marketers back from being able to really enter into I think this kind of next generation, which is it's accounts but also leads, because you kind of need to work at both. It's sales and marketing working as a team. It's looking at all stages of the account funnel. You know, it's not just email. It's orchestrating across lots of different channels. And there's different metrics too. You know, it's measuring quality, not just quantity. It's looking for attribution. You don't just look at what marketing does. You look at what marketing and sales does. You know, because you got to kind of figure out ultimately what's the right mix for the team. So I think that's some of the kind of the big things that we're seeing, and it's ultimately it's what's driving, I think, this convergence that a lot of the analysts are predicting between ABM and traditional marketing automation platforms.
Interesting. Yeah, you said a lot of very relevant things there. The quality versus quantity particularly resonated. If there was one piece of advice, and we've seen a bunch of our own ABM initiatives with our own clients, obviously you see a lot too, what would that one piece of advice of a best practice for account-based marketing be if you were to suggest something to someone?
There's just one piece of advice. I would recommend companies implement what we call an ABM stand-up. And so Snowflake is doing this, Anaplan does this, we do it ourselves internally. The key is that you take the sales rep, the SDR if you have one, and the marketer that supports that pair. Just those folks. There's no around the room of other people, there's no executives, there's no managers, just those three folks. They get together, say every 2 weeks, and they talk about the accounts, right? And you know, you might look at the data in different ways. You might say, well, let's look at the open opportunities we're trying to close. Which ones are stuck? You know, just sort them by the days open. You know, all right, well, what can we do to unstick the ones that have been not moving for some reason? Or, all right, now let's look at the top of the funnel. You know, like interesting accounts that are on our target list, but that are not showing any engagement. You know, maybe they're showing third-party intent, but not on our site. How do we unlock them? You know, oh, maybe we can send them a direct mail campaign, or you know, who do we know, and that kind of thing. So just getting that information, sharing back and forth through a very simple conversation process, I think goes a very, very long way.
Great. No, that's excellent, and it sounds like going after the low-hanging fruit in the stand-up is kind of a key aspect.
And definitely a best practice, you know, that I've seen, companies implement. Now, you do need to have the data sort of in place to make it work.
Details.
You know, so I'm sort of making the assumption that you have some kind of lead to account matching in place, some way to at least just get some visibility about what's happening at the account level, not just the person level.
Awesome.
But if you got that in place, yeah, then go for the stand-up.
And outside of work, I know you're passionate about Engagio, and you founded an industry. What occupies your time outside of work?
Well, it does take a lot of time, but I'm married and I have kids. So a lot of my non-work time is what I call daddy Uber service. Just driving the kids from one spot to the next. So that tends to keep my weekends pretty busy.
Hopefully they tip well, though.
Yeah, right.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Okay.